The film opens on pure chaos, as a horde of Dreadites tears through the entire kingdom. The royal army, led by Prince Halgan, tries to hold the line, but they are completely overrun. One by one, the soldiers fall, until only Prince Halgan is left, badly wounded and barely able to move. In his fading consciousness, Halgan watches as the Dreadites brutally slaughter one of his soldiers right in front of him. As he lies there dying, one of the creatures approaches, ready to finish him off. Before it can strike, a lone man arrives and cuts through the Dreadites with ease, taking them all down by himself. The man walks over to Prince Halgan and takes his hand. For a moment, it looks like he is about to help him, but instead he quietly slips off the prince's ring and amulet. Halgan tries to warn him not to take the amulet, but he dies before he can finish his sentence. The man pockets the items and heads to a nearby village tavern, where a group of farmers are complaining that the soldiers took all their crops for the war, yet still lost the battle. When the man steps inside, the farmers start talking about him, saying he is known for stripping valuables from dead soldiers on the battlefield. One of the farmers gets up to confront him, but an old man stops him. The old man explains that this stranger was once a trusted knight of the Queen, long before Prince Halgan was named heir, and before the war against the Dreadites. He is the sole survivor of the Grimvault massacre, a horror that was said to leave no one alive. While everyone is talking about him, the man quietly examines the amulet he took from Halgan, and its eyes suddenly glows red. Moments later, a two-headed troll ducks into the tavern and calls the man by his true name, Deathstalker. The troll demands that he hand over the amulet he took from Prince Halgan. Instead of reacting to the threat, Deathstalker simply gives the tavern owner 2 coins, one for food and one for a chair. He then smashes the chair into the troll and makes a run for it. The troll quickly recovers and charges outside to chase him. The fight that follows is intense. Deathstalker tries to use surprise attacks, but the troll can see from 2 angles at once. In the middle of the battle, Deathstalker notices a strange symbol marked on the troll's body. That brief distraction costs him. The troll grabs his sword and snaps the blade clean in half. When Deathstalker tries to retreat, the troll snags his leg with a rope and yanks him back. Deathstalker then holds up the amulet to the troll. As the creature reaches for it, Deathstalker quickly grabs the broken blade and drives it into one of the troll's heads. He then mounts his horse and rides away. Behind him, the remaining head curses Deathstalker and swears that every bounty hunter in the land will now be coming for him. Deathstalker glances back one last time and hurls the rest of his sword, burying it right into the troll's remaining skull. And so his path begins. This is Deathstalker. As Deathstalker continues his journey, he starts to realize that the amulet is causing far more trouble than it is worth. He tosses it into a river and rides off, relieved to be rid of it. But only moments later, he discovers the amulet sitting back inside his pocket, as if it had never left. He throws it again and again, but it always returns. That is when it becomes clear. He is now bound to the amulet. Looking for answers, Deathstalker seeks out a witch named Taralva. He shows her the amulet and asks her to break the bond. Taralva explains that the amulet can only leave its bearer through death. She admits that she cannot remove the curse herself, but there is a ritual that can reveal the path forward. She asks Deathstalker to lay out a map along with a single game piece. Using a drop of his blood, she begins the ritual and tells him about an old wizard named Doodad, someone who understands the ancient language tied to the amulet and might be able to help. The small game piece placed on the map starts to move on its own, finally stopping at a location that is believed to be Doodad's current whereabouts. As Deathstalker prepares to leave, Taralva warns him that a great evil is rising and that he will eventually have to face it. Following the map, Deathstalker arrives at a cave. Inside, he finds several corpses, and in the eerie silence, he hears someone calling for help from inside a chained wooden box. Sword in hand, he stays alert, finds the key, and approaches the box. Before he can open it, a massive man-eating serpent bursts out of the ground. Deathstalker climbs onto a nearby rock, unlocks the box, and a tiny wizard tumbles out. The wizard introduces himself as Doodad, the very man Deathstalker has been searching for. With Doodad clinging to his back, Deathstalker fights off several of the serpent creatures and manages to escape the cave. Grateful for being rescued, Doodad thanks him once they are safely outside. Meanwhile, back at the tavern, the innkeeper tries to move the dead troll's body, but is suddenly ambushed by a group of horrifying creatures. Elsewhere, Deathstalker and Doodad sit by a campfire. Doodad studies the amulet and immediately recognizes it as Prince Halgan's. He explains that the markings on the amulet are written in Asmordian, an ancient language that once formed the foundation of the Abraxan Empire. Doodad tells him that the only person who ever mastered Asmordian was a grand wizard named Zodin. Unfortunately, Zodin has been dead for years, and all his manuscripts were buried with him. But Doodad believes that one of those manuscripts contains the key to unlocking the amulet's code. Hearing this, Deathstalker decides they need to travel to Zodin's tomb and retrieve the manuscript. Doodad refuses at first, insisting the journey is far too dangerous. But after Deathstalker threatens him, the tiny wizard reluctantly agrees and follows him into the unknown. The next day on the road, Deathstalker suddenly remembers the strange symbol he saw on the troll's body. He shows it to Doodad, hoping for an explanation. Doodad instantly recognizes it. It is the mark of the Saitor, an ancient cult of dark sorcerers long thought to be extinct. The Saitor were obsessed with forbidden magic from other realms, places filled with corruption and horrors beyond human understanding. Their leader, Necromemnon, was said to be nearly unbeatable, and every record of his teachings was destroyed. Some even believe the Dreadites were created by Necromemnon and the Saitor themselves. Doodad warns that if Deathstalker's path is connected to the Saitor, then real danger is waiting ahead. What they do not know is that a goblin bird has been spying on them from a distance. As they continue forward, the eye on the amulet suddenly glows, signaling that enemies are closing in. Deathstalker quickly pulls Doodad into hiding. Moments later, a masked knight arrives on horseback. He scatters enchanted stones onto the ground, and Dreadites rise up from the earth, ready to search the area. Trying to help, Doodad tosses out a stone of his own and performs a spell. Instead of summoning something useful, he accidentally brings out a floating headless creature that screeches loud enough to reveal their hiding spot. A fight breaks out. In the middle of the chaos, the masked knight removes his helmet, revealing his identity. It is Jotak, a man Deathstalker once trusted, and someone he believed he had killed during the Grimvault battle. Jotak calls him by his real name, Tritus. Back then, the two were sent to stop Necromemnon and the Saitor from performing a dark ritual, but Jotak fell under the cult's influence. He became possessed and slaughtered their comrades, forcing Deathstalker to strike him down. Jotak did not stay dead for long. Necromemnon resurrected him later as his servant. Now in the present, Jotak wants the amulet and challenges Deathstalker to a duel. Deathstalker struggles at first but manages to regain his footing. At the right moment, he cuts off Jotak's arm to distract him, grabs Doodad, and makes a desperate escape.
Doodad, let's go! Come on!
As they flee, Doodad explains the real scale of what they are dealing with. Necromemnon's return would threaten every living creature, including the entire Abraxan Empire. If the Dark Sorcerer rises again, the world will collapse into a new age of darkness. They have no choice but to move faster before time runs out. That night, Deathstalker and Doodad finally reach Zodin's tomb, but the place is already crawling with Necromemnon's followers. Two of them are busy assembling new Dreadites from human body parts, turning them into even stronger versions of the creatures they fought before. While they are trying to figure out a way inside, a mysterious woman appears from behind, clearly with the same goal. With no better option, they decide to work together. Doodad and the woman slip into the tomb first, while Deathstalker stands guard outside. Inside the chamber, Doodad and the woman team up to open the ancient coffin and search for the manuscript that decodes the Asmordian language. But outside, Deathstalker is suddenly ambushed by a massive boar-like creature, fast and violent. At the same time, monsters inside the tomb corner Doodad and the woman. Deathstalker manages to kill the boar and rushes in just in time to save them from the rest of the creatures. As they try to escape, the boar monster they thought was dead rises again, but only long enough to deliver a message from Necromemnon. He warns that his forces will hunt them without rest. Right then, the woman discovers an exit, and the three of them flee the tomb and catch their breath outside. They finally get a moment to talk, and the woman introduces herself as Brisbane. She calls herself a treasure hunter, although she admits she is really more of a thief. Still, she promises not to steal anything from them. The night grows quiet and everyone eventually falls asleep, until Deathstalker wakes up to the sound of heavy footsteps. A stone creature with glowing green eyes emerges from the darkness, and the fight begins. The creature is incredibly strong and almost immune to normal weapons. Brisbane jumps in, pries out one of its green eyes, and that is when Deathstalker spots the weakness. He reaches for a lever on the monster's back, twists it, and the creature collapses as thick fluid spills out. Brisbane pockets the monster's pearl, like eye as a trophy. Meanwhile, at Necromemnon's lair, Jotak is being repaired by the Dark Sorcerer. With Necromemnon's power, Jotak's missing arm grows back as a monstrous limb, complete with blades that can extend at will. Back on the road, Deathstalker, Doodad, and Brisbane continue their journey. What starts as a tense partnership slowly becomes warmer, especially between Deathstalker and Brisbane, but that warmth vanishes as soon as they arrive at the Abraxion war camp. Every soldier there has been slaughtered. Before they can investigate, a creature named Scarabus appears, using flying chains and teleportation to strike from every angle. The battle pushes them to their limits, but with good teamwork, they manage to take the monster down. That night, they rest again. Brisbane tends to Deathstalker's wounds and talks to him about the heart. She tells him that everyone has one, and it is the heart that decides a person's fate. Her words stop him in his tracks. While they rest, Doodad studies Zodin's manuscript. He finally cracks the Asmordian language and breaks the magical bond tying Prince Halgan's amulet to Deathstalker. For the first time, Deathstalker is free. Doodad also uncovers the ancient prophecy of Telon written inside the amulet. Long ago, the realm was ruled by two powerful magical beings, Telon, the Mage of Light, and Saitor, the Ruler of Darkness. They used humanity as their pieces in a battle to decide the fate of the world. As ages passed, Saitor's power grew so overwhelming that no ordinary force could stop him. To counter it, Telon forged a legendary weapon, a blade that could only be wielded by someone who had crossed both life and death. That weapon was hidden inside an ancient amulet, passed down through generations. Once Doodad cracked the manuscript, he finally understood the amulet's true purpose. The weapon, known as the Light of Telon, was still lost, but the prophecy claimed that one day a knight would rise, claim the four-bladed sword, extinguish the four hearts of darkness, and save the kingdom from destruction. The next morning, Deathstalker and Doodad wake to find themselves completely surrounded by armed soldiers. Doodad warns him not to fight, since they are badly outnumbered. They are taken to the Swamp of Death, where they meet Grendel, the ruthless queen of thieves who rules the area with suspicion and cruelty. And there they learn the real blow. Brisbane has betrayed them. She stole the amulet and handed it to Grendel, offering Deathstalker and Doodad as bargaining chips so she could join the thieves' ranks. Grendel plans to sell the amulet to the royal family for a hefty reward. Grendel offers Deathstalker a chance to join her crew, but he refuses. The punishment is immediate: execution. But before the blade can fall, a massive moss-covered swamp monster erupts from the murky water and tears through everyone in sight. The creature rips through the camp with brutal force. Fortunately, Doodad manages to calm the monster using the flute he always carries. Once it settles, he convinces Deathstalker to hug the creature as a sign of friendship so they can leave the swamp unharmed. Soon after, the two head toward the city of Grimfire to return the amulet to the royal family. The journey stretches late into the night, but they eventually arrive and meet the prince. Deathstalker asks for 2 full bags of gold as compensation for everything they endured, but instead he is handed a pouch full of stones. The prince also makes it clear that he intends to take Deathstalker's head, since the kingdom now considers him a traitor. Before anything can happen, a flying goblin swoops down and drops seeds that burst open into dreadites. The attack gives Deathstalker and Doodad a chance to escape, but as they flee through the streets, another goblin blocks their path. This time, Doodad unleashes a sudden blast of magic that destroys the creature instantly. Moments later, Jotak appears and confronts them. Seeing that Jotak has no sword, Deathstalker tosses away his own to fight honorably. But Jotak's new monstrous arm transforms, revealing hidden blades that strike without warning. Deathstalker is wounded badly. Brisbane arrives and tries to stab Jotak from behind, but the attack has no effect. Jotak turns, lifts her by the throat, and squeezes. Deathstalker forces himself up to save her, but Jotak's next strike pierces straight through his heart. Deathstalker collapses and dies instantly. With no one left to oppose him, Jotak takes the amulet and massacres the prince and the entire royal guard without mercy. The next morning, Deathstalker's lifeless body is carried through the swamp by the moss-covered monster he befriended earlier. In a strange and miraculous ritual, the swamp creatures revive him by growing vines and branches that seal the hole in his heart. When he opens his eyes, Deathstalker immediately knows what he has to do. He needs to save his friends and stop the world from falling into darkness. Meanwhile, Brisbane and Doodad have already been captured by Jotak and dragged before Necromemnon. Brisbane is forced to drink a black potion that knocks her out instantly. Jotak hands over the amulet, and Necromemnon pours it into a vat filled with dark liquid. It is the final ingredient needed to resurrect Saitor, the King of Darkness. Just when all hope seems lost, Deathstalker arrives on the flying monster head that Doodad once brought to life. He dives straight into the battlefield, tearing through the Dreadites with ease, then frees Doodad from his restraints. But their victory is short-lived. Brisbane is dying, her body used as the vessel for Cider's return. Deathstalker tries to save her, but Jotak blocks his path, forcing another brutal fight. Jotak's demonic arm makes him nearly invincible, shrugging off every blade and strike. At the same time, Doodad engages Necromemnon in a fierce magic duel, filling the room with clashing waves of power that shake the entire chamber. The fight intensifies as Jotak drives Deathstalker to the brink of defeat. At the very last second, Deathstalker spots an opening and shoves a Dreadite seed into Jotak's mouth. The reaction is instant. Jotak explodes from the inside and is blown apart. Moments later, Doodad also manages to defeat Necromemnon, although the spell rebounds and causes a massive stone block to crash down on the sorcerer. But the triumph does not last. From Brisbane's lifeless body, Saitor rises in full form. With a single pulse of dark energy, he kills Necromemnon, the very one who resurrected him. Doodad panics, but Deathstalker steps forward, refusing to back down. He reaches into the vat and finds something unbelievable. The legendary weapon hidden for centuries. The Light of Telyn, a four-bladed sword destined to be used by someone who crossed life and death. With the weapon in hand, Deathstalker confronts Saitor. During the battle, Doodad assists with magic, giving Deathstalker a small opening. He slices open Saitor's chest and reveals 4 beating hearts. As he prepares to destroy them all, a memory stops him. Brisbane's words about the heart, about how every heart determines its own fate. Instead of destroying all 4, Deathstalker releases one of the blades and uses the remaining 3 to strike only the dark hearts. The attack destroys Cider completely, and the final heart still beating is Brisbane's, allowing her to survive the ritual.
Brisbane! Hey! She's alive!
You're okay.
The next day, Doodad explains that Deathstalker has rewritten the prophecy. He is now the savior of the kingdom, free to enter the capital and claim the throne if he chooses. But Deathstalker refuses. He wants the sword destroyed, believing no one should control the fate of humanity through a weapon. He hands the sword to Doodad and tells him to destroy it. Instead, Doodad fires small, harmless sparks at Deathstalker, clearly messing with him. Deathstalker gets annoyed and demands he try again, only for Doodad to keep joking around. And that is how the story ends, with the tiny wizard teasing the frustrated knight, and the two of them bickering like old friends as the world finally returns to peace. So the moral of the story is, maybe do not pick up random, glowing amulets from dying princes unless you want curses, trolls, dark wizards, exploding friends, and a whole prophecy chasing you around like it owns your life.